For more than 5 centuries, the most powerful nations on Earth have risen to incredible heights, and then collapsed in nearly the same sequence every time. Spain, the British Empire, and the Soviet Union each followed a repeating pattern that brought them from global dominance to irreversible decline. And today, in 2025, the United States is moving through that same sequence far more quickly than most people realize. This isn't about politics or sensationalism. It's about a historical rhythm that has repeated for 500 years with stunning accuracy. Before we break down where the US fits into this pattern, you first need to understand what the end of an empire truly looks like. It rarely begins with invasion or defeat on a battlefield. It begins when the economic engine that supports the empire quietly weakens while the surface still looks stable. The currency keeps circulating, the military keeps operating, and the government keeps making promises. But underneath, the structural support is already failing. Over time, the cracks widen. Allies lose confidence. Rivals grow bolder. The currency stops holding its special position in global trade. The costs of maintaining global influence begin to outweigh the benefits. Society becomes more divided, and institutions become less trusted. Then, almost overnight, the system reaches a breaking point, and what looked strong suddenly collapses. Spain was the first modern example. After discovering enormous wealth in the Americas, Spain became the richest empire on the planet. Silver ships arrived every year with unimaginable amounts of treasure. That temporary abundance turned into long-term weakness. Spain committed to wars on multiple continents, spent more than it could sustain, began diluting its currency with cheap metals, took on massive debts, and eventually stopped producing much of anything at home. When the silver flow slowed, the entire economy unraveled. The once dominant empire shrank into a regional power that never regained its former status. Britain followed the pattern centuries later. At its peak in the early 1900s, the British Empire controlled a quarter of the world's land and people. But defending such a vast empire required enormous spending. When World War I broke out, Britain chose to fight at any cost, and the financial toll was devastating. After the war, the government tried to restore the pound to its former value, but the economy couldn't support it. Debt exploded. World War II deepened the crisis. Within a few decades, Britain relinquished its colonies, lost its global financial dominance, and watched its once world-leading currency steadily erode in value. The empire faded, and the country took on a secondary role in world affairs. The Soviet Union collapsed even faster. Although it appeared powerful from the outside, with nuclear weapons, a huge military, and control over Eastern Europe, the internal economic system was deteriorating. Massive military spending, inefficient industries, and a currency that no one trusted created a fragile foundation. When oil prices fell and Eastern European states broke away, the Soviet Union simply ran out of money. In just a few years, it dissolved completely. No invasion, no external conquest, only economic failure and political breakdown. Now compare that pattern to the United States today. The US has more than 750 overseas military bases, obligations across the world, and a defense budget larger than that of the next 10 countries combined. The dollar has been fully fiat since 1971, and the money supply has expanded dramatically in recent decades. National debt has surpassed $36 trillion, and interest payments are rising to historic levels. The country imports far more than it produces, relies heavily on foreign manufacturing for critical goods, and faces deep internal polarization. Trust in institutions, media, and politics has fallen sharply. All of these indicators match the stages that other empires reached shortly before entering irreversible decline. America has already moved through 5 stages of the historical pattern: global overexpansion, currency debasement, unsustainable debt growth, declining productive capacity, and internal social fracture. That leaves 2 stages. The next stage involves losing the unique position of the US dollar. While the dollar is still dominant, major nations are beginning to trade in other currencies, build new alliances, and diversify away from the American financial system. Those shifts are slow at first, and then they accelerate suddenly, exactly as they did for previous empires. When the reserve currency loses its special role, collapse does not unfold slowly. A currency crisis leads to a debt crisis. A debt crisis leads to political and financial instability, and the world's leading power transitions rapidly into something far more limited. Spain experienced it. Britain experienced it. The Soviet Union experienced it. Every empire believed it was unique, until the pattern proved otherwise. America can still reform and avoid the final stages. But historically, no empire has reversed course once it has entered this deep into the pattern. The mathematics, the economics, and the historical parallels all point in the same direction. If this helped you see where the world is heading and why these shifts matter, subscribe, because understanding these stages before they unfold is the best way to prepare for what comes next. History doesn't hide the answers, it repeats them.